Thank you, Raja, and the Canadian Arab Institute for the kind invitation. When we started talking to each other about 6 months ago, I was really proud to see that there's something like this that's happening within our community, and that you are really profiling a diverse group of Arab Canadians. So that's really awesome. And Asiya, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm really glad to be here today to really talk about a topic that lies very near to my heart, which is living our potential, our journey to change the world. That's really governed my professional work over the past 12 years. But really, I'm not talking about our journey today. I'm going to talk about your journey that you're going to define with us and during the week, and also during your life, how you can be an agent of social change in your own community. Never in my wildest dream did I think I'm going to be living in Canada. When I came to Canada, it was in 1998. Not to age myself, please do not do the math, So I came here to pursue higher education at Trent University. And I was really lucky to be working in an environment that actually combined three of my passions. Talking about my passions, there are gender and development, talking about the advancement of youth activities, as well as international development. So I was really lucky to be working in this field right after I graduated from university. And I know that there has been a lot of movement in terms of advancement of child rights issues and youth engagement globally in terms of alleviating poverty and moving their rights forward in the agenda politically. However, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, until right now, despite all the work that has been done globally to alleviate poverty, we have over 600 million people who are living under $1 a day. That doesn't even buy you a coffee here, just to put things in perspective. Or the fact that 115 million children around the world, many of them are girls, are not going to go into school because they don't have access to education. Again, something to really put into perspective when we are at Ryerson University and we are pursuing education. Or the fact, and that's really close to my heart, the fact that we have over 300,000 young people who are being recruited as child soldiers. And we're not doing anything about it. These issues are really close to my heart. And when I read these stats, I don't consider them as stats. I don't consider them as, just a number. I consider them as stories of Amit, Eduardo, Muhammad, Ahmed, Samira, and others. These stats have actually a story behind them. And I urge you, when you look at the stats, don't look at numbers. Look at the story behind these numbers and the impact. I would have been one of those stats. As somebody who has lived throughout war, not once, twice in my lifetime, as a teenager and as a child, in 2 different regions. But I was lucky enough to have education as a tool to get me where I am right now. And that's one of the messages I want to really get across right now, is that education is not a cliche when you say education is key to alleviating poverty, or education is key to breaking the cycle of disempowerment. It is key to empowerment. And this is where I would like to begin my story, to share with you kind of my evolution and what I've learned along the way. I am a Palestinian. I was born in Kuwait. My family were teachers, typical Palestinian stories, working there. We lived what we called it the perfect or the excellent life, that was characterized by stability, by a level of good income. We went to schools. But in 1990, after the Gulf War, this all shattered. Our stability became something that's not there anymore. And at that time, whether I liked it or not, I became an adult. I became an adult faster than I hoped for, or I actually desired. But you deal with the situation. As Arabs, you just deal with it, and you make the best out of any situation. And that's a lesson I learned at the age of 11. Because of the systematic racism against Palestinians after the Gulf War, my parents had really a few options, but really one option. Either you stay in Kuwait and continue living in that environment, or you actually go to another area. We had only one option, which is going to the Gaza Strip. So imagine, as a parent, going through the whole issue of Do you choose living through systematic racism or go to another war area? So that's the choice we made. We decided to go to the Gaza Strip. I don't want to go into detail how hard it is living in the Gaza Strip at the age of 12 until the age of 17, with the constant curfews, the constant occupation that's happening in the Gaza Strip, the siege that we are facing right now and continue to face. It's not really an environment to have a young teenager to work or to live or to have a regular life, what we made it do. I was lucky enough because my parents were really unconventional. And if you know anything about the Gaza community, generally girls going to, at the age of 17, getting a scholarship to go and study in Norway and being from a Bedouin heritage wasn't really a fun conversation for my dad to have with the community in there, saying that, you know what, I want to send my 17-year-old girl to the West. God knows what they're going to happen there for education. But for this moment, I'm so grateful for my parents for taking a stand for education of girls. So I was lucky enough to go to Norway, and we were granted a full scholarship to study there for high school. And from there, I was lucky enough to actually get a scholarship to come to Trent University. Was I scared coming to Canada or to Norway? 100%. What do I know about English? What do I know about the cultural norms? After all, most of the English that I've learned, and was from like rap music. Yes, I did listen to rap music. And was also from watching movies such as Top Gun. And I used to have a crush on Tom Cruise, not anymore, and I'm ashamed to say that. But this is how I learned my English. And then I go to a community that's completely different. It has different language, different cultural norms, a lot of stereotypes that Abdullah was talking about. And you just have to prove yourself. You have to define your own brand. You have to define your why. You also have to define what you want to be and how you can relate to your cultural norms at home, but also being able to contribute positively in this community. It was really hard. The first questions people ask you, oh, you're a woman, Arab, Muslim, Palestinian. 4 fronts that you definitely have to defend all the time. So I took a different position. You know what? I'm not going to defend anymore. What I'm going to talk about is that what I can contribute positively as being a woman. I do identify myself first as a woman, Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim. I'm not going to defend anymore. And I learned this the hard way. While in university, and I feel sorry for my dad and my mom. Honestly, each time I call them, they're like, okay, what now? Like, what do you want to do now? And so I called them in my 3rd year, and I said, I'm studying international development and political science. Excuse me. And I was really in love with Latin culture. And I took Spanish when I was in university. And then I said to my parents, I really would like to go in my 3rd year to learn about community development in Ecuador. And you can say, Dad, my dad, like, oh my God, come on, marra, you're going to do this? And I'm like, yes, Dad, just trust me this time. So in my 3rd year of university, I did a placement in a community development organization that provides services to young children, street children, that sadly their parents are in jail. In Ecuador, at that time, you had 2 choices. Either you bring your child into the jail, or you have them live with a family. And if you don't have both options, then they live on the streets. And I have to say, I learned so much about development practices and about other cultures by spending about 10 months in Ecuador learning. And again, my English was a gringa, right? Like I was not, the perfect Spanish speaker. They knew that I was a foreigner, although I have a dark complexion and I kind of pass for, Latina, but they also figured out that, I'm not from there. So you had to grow this balance. And again, I had to learn how you can really be part of a community, but still preserving your own culture while there. This is the community that I worked in. And while I was there, I met one girl. Her name is Maria Angela. And throughout my work and throughout my career, I've learned so much from the people that actually I meet and the stories that they represent. Maria Angela is 9 years old. She looks actually younger, but that's because of malnutrition. She's an indigenous girl. Her father was incarcerated because of drugs. He decided not to take her with her in prison and said, you know what, off you go into the streets. So the organization I worked for at the time provided education, health and water and sanitation, as well as recovery, kind of psychological recovery programs for these girls. And for a girl that has had such hardship, for me to sit down with her and say that she still has aspiration, she knows what her why for her future, and to say that I want to be a lawyer, and that was in 1999 when I was in Ecuador. And she is pursuing her law degree right now. And the reason why is because she doesn't want other children to be in the same situation that she's in. She is one of the stats that I talked to you about. But she's a stat that took her passion, her bad situation, and turned it into an action. And my volunteer experiences, as well as my work over the past, many, many years in youth engagement and advancement, led me to start looking at job opportunities. So as Asil mentioned, I started as an intern. That was the third phone call I had to my parents. I graduated, got a really good degree, but I'm not coming home to Gaza. So he's like, great, what are you doing? I'm like, I want to work. I want to start working, in Canada. So you can imagine another conversation that happened within the community. What does that mean, in terms of having your girl who's not married at the time, to live by her own? Again, God bless them. So much respect for my parents and being so very patient. So I was looking through kind of the different internships. And as I shared with you, my passions are gender and development, is youth engagement and international development community work. So I got to start working with Free the Children, the organization, after I graduated right away in 2002. And I think the story behind Free the Children is so awesome that shows you that, one young person can make a world of difference. And if you humor me for a second, I just want to share with you how the organization started. Free the Children started by Craig Kilberger, a young Canadian from Mitcham Hill, at the age of 12 years old. So that's in itself, it's really awesome. Now we're about 20 years old as an organization. But the story started when he was flipping through the newspaper, the Toronto Star, in 1995. Not because he was so like, oh, I want to know what happens in the world. He was just looking for the comics, right? Like any other kid. And then while he was looking at the comics, he saw an article at the front page. The article struck him because of the line, the headline. The headline said, "Battled child labor, boy 12 murdered." Craig was like, I'm 12 years old. This guy across the world is 12 years old. There's something wrong in this picture. It was the story of Iqbal Masih, who was born in South Asia. But he was one of what we have right now, 168 million child laborers that we have in the world. He was sold at the age of 4 because his parents did not read the contract. They just sold him, and because of poverty. And then he was literally in the carpet looming factory. He was chained into that looming, the carpet looming thing for 6 years. He was lucky enough to be rescued. He started speaking against child labor. People who are the carpet mafia did not like that. As soon as he came back to Pakistan, he was murdered. The lesson of this is that he knew his life would be in danger, but he took a stand. And the largest action and the largest voice can be in the smallest body. All of us here have a voice and can make a difference. And from there, the organization, Craig Kilberger went to his grade 7 class, and he picked up the article and he said, I want to do something, who's with me? So a 12-year-old kid at the time and right now, being part of social justice groups is not really a cool thing to do. But he said, who's with me? And then one hand rose up, another hand, a third, a fourth, and all of a sudden, 12 hands with him started Free the Children. They called themselves the 12-year-olds But then one of them turned 13. They're like, okay, we got to change the name because we can't be a 12-year-old anymore. And that's where Free the Children started at the time. And now it's the largest network of children health insurance through education. We have over 1.7 million people who are engaged in our development programs overseas and youth engagement in here. Our dual mandate is international domestic. We know in the areas throughout our history that education is key to breaking the cycle of poverty and the cycle of disempowerment. So lack of infrastructure, we start building schools, but then girls could not attend the schools because they have to walk for long distances and fetch for water. So we start working on implementing water projects. And I think the lesson I'm trying to portray in here is that things happen in steps. Community engagement is really key because community engagement is so key in our work that we can't just go from a top-down approach when we implement our development programs. We know that kids were getting sick. We started doing mobile health clinics as well as permanent health clinics. Agriculture and food security, that's another program that we do. And one of my favorite, and that's one of the reasons why I joined the organization, is our alternative income program, which actually focuses on empowering young women. And this is going to give you an impact where we're at with things. I share this with you because over 60% of our funding comes from young people. And we're a high budget organization. So actually Canadians specifically are taking action to support their peers overseas. And when that Canadians, I also include young Arab Canadians as well. Throughout my journey, I met a lot of amazing women. And one of the women I met was MONIKA. MONIKA is a Kipsigis woman from Kenya. She's really tall, like really tall. And if you know anything about the MAASAI and the Kipsigis communities, women usually are not the vocal ones. It's usually the men who are making a lot of decisions. But I don't know what happened with MONIKA. MONIKA is just like, she goes into a room full of chiefs, the chief just keeps quiet, and she just speaks. She's one of those women that actually comes into the room with full energy. But the reason why I share her story is because she's benefited from all of our programs. So now she is beading, selling her beads, and also sending all of her girls to schools. In terms of our second, mandate, which really very, very close to my heart, is our We Day program, which we have, if you've heard of it, we have these amazing events that happen in Canada and the US and the UK, where over 200 young people are engaged in these programs. But what's key about these programs, about the We Day, we have amazing speakers coming in from Martin Luther King, who actually inspire the third aspiring young people to take action in their community, to Malala, who's awesome, young person as a profile of like an amazing young person who's taking a stand, to President Cell Relief. But what's really cool is that they have to take action. You cannot buy a ticket to We Day. You have to commit to one local action and one global action in order to come to We Day. And that's really key. And this action could support any cause. It's not about supporting Free the Children. It's about supporting a passion that you really, taking your passion into action. I'm very proud to say that young Canadians, and specifically young Canadians and Americans, through their participation, were able to raise over $45 million to over 1,000 causes of their choice. Or the fact that they have 14.6 million hours volunteered in their community. Because we would be telling them in these programs is that you matter, your choices matter, and you can move the needle on the most pressing issues. Usually people say we're the leaders of tomorrow. It's one of the things that one of my pet peeves when people say that. You don't have to wait for tomorrow to make a difference. You can do it right now at a very young age. And one of my favorites, we did a study, and I'm sure Willie, you will like this one. 79% of the people that participate in our programs actually voted in the last federal election. That's actually double the amount of the national amount in terms of engagement of young people, because the vote of young people actually matters. One of the things that we always do when we do our speaking engagements, and my team, all my young team at the office at Carleton and Parliament, you always have to end up your speech with a call to action. So it's great. We get excited. We get angry. We get like, yes, we need to do something. And then we go home and we're like, we're busy in our own lives. But what if our own lives becomes part of us making a difference in our local communities? And I have Mallory here from our team, and she will definitely report back if I don't leave this session without giving a call to action. So Mallory, I am doing that. We have something called the social change equation. So my first call to action, combine your gift plus your issue, it will equal change. We actually have tested this over the past 20 years. So the first call to action, raise awareness about an issue that you're passionate about. That's really important. But what's important that you are passionate about, not because your school asked you to do something about it, not because your parents asked you to do something about it, it's because you feel a sense of connection with that particular issue. And when you combine your talent with the issue that you're really passionate about, something will happen. I guarantee you, we see this with the hundreds and thousands of young people we engage every single day. 2, volunteer and give back. If young people were able to volunteer 14.6 million hours, I challenge each one of you that you're able to volunteer in your own local community. It's not only that's good for your resume, and it's good for your university application, they are good. Trust me, I hire people all the time, and I look not only about their education, I look about what they have done in their community. For me, that's as important as what their education, if they got A+. A+ is really awesome, but if they have done nothing in their own spare time for volunteering, I think I don't know if I would really entertain this application. And the last one, just from my personal experience, just take a risk and go overseas to check out other cultures. We host multiple of events, trips overseas to Kenya, Dominican Republic, to East Africa, and others. But go overseas and volunteer time for 3 weeks or 2 weeks. You will learn more about these cultures, and I think, personally, in my humble opinion, you are a better Canadian when you come back to this community that is so multicultural that you're able to understand other cultures as well. All of you have so many opportunities in Canada. I think that's something we cannot even deny. You have a lot of stories that you have built up in terms of people that you've met from your past history as well, that to inspire you. And also you have a lot of mentors along the way. And if you don't have a mentor, I highly encourage you to find a mentor, because that is so crucial. I would say 50% of where I am right now is because of the level of mentorship that I had along the way, professionally and personally. And you got to take this one seriously. I literally, half of my mentors, they kind of signed a contract, outlining the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. So I leave you with the following: have the courage to dream, the passion to believe, and the intensity to act. Thank you very much for sharing your early morning with me, and God bless you.